active. Delta, all players, 2 Bravo active.
We zone 3 defending. Digger, Harley, 2-track active bearing 2.
Hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is your host Prickly Hedgehog. Glad you could tune in to the channel today and take some time out of your day to listen in. Thanks for all the likes and subscribes recently, which of course keeps the channel chugging along. Now today we're going to talk about my favorite aircraft in DCS and why, and really it's going to be more of a list of the aircraft that I own. I know sometimes some of you ask about other aircraft that I own and that I have a preference for the F-14B, which turns up in my videos quite a lot, and there is a reason for that. Now, of course, there is a degree of subjectivity in all of this, so please don't accept this as an authoritative debrief on why one plane is better over others, or why you should buy one over another. That's not what this video is about. If you're looking for pointers on that, you probably need to look elsewhere. These are my preferences and my biases, so I want to get that out of the way right now in case there's any confusion. Now, the good thing is we do have a sale on right now and a free trial of the aircraft in DCS. So if you are looking for discounted prices, you can pick them up through Eagle Dynamics at the purchase point. And you can also fly the aircraft you love and are interested in and may find you don't love them quite so much after flying them. You get to do that and to discern some of your aircraft preferences as a result of that. Now, don't forget also, you can add an additional extra discount from the Fighter Pilot podcast and also Grim Reapers. If you go to their channels, they will give you a code word to use, which you can add in at the point of sale to get a little additional money off your purchases. So well worth checking out those two channels as a result of that. Again, Grim Reapers and of course Fighter Pilot podcast, both great channels. If you're looking for fun and entertainment and also some learning, Grim Reapers. If you're looking for dedicated information about aircraft from actual pilots who flew them, including the host, Vincent Aiello, then he's worth watching along with his numerous guests who are experts in the area. Very, very interesting website, if you like, and podcast to listen into. So, all right, and I want to thank Eagle Dynamics here too for providing us the discount during the COVID pandemic. It's very, very nice of them, and again, a huge shout out to them for being so generous, and that's fantastic. All right, so hope you get to take advantage of that, and again, support Eagle Dynamics through the pandemic period. All right, now with that out of the way, let's talk about the different aircraft that I own in no particular order. Firstly, I own the bundle, the Flaming Cliffs 3 bundle, which has a large number of the non-full fidelity aircraft to choose from. So we're talking here the Su-27, the F-15C, the MiG-29, and aircraft like the Su-25 Frogfoot, which is an ugly spud of a machine, but somehow very endearing. Now, I think I own quite a few. I've just suddenly thought of 2 extra aircraft that I own that I had missed here as well. So I own the Mirage, I own the Viggen, I own the A-10C, the F-14B, the F-16, the F-18, the Black 50, the Black Shark KA-50, excuse me, let's get that right. So that's my only rotary wing aircraft, the Spitfire, the Bf-109, and the Harrier. So I think that's about 10 modules, so there's a lot of aircraft. So that's quite a bit of expenditure, far too many in fact. But all of those aircraft, apart from perhaps 1 or 2 whim purchases, I think most of those aircraft are ones that I consider as must-haves in my hangar. I had to have them, and they all have, of course, unique characteristics and challenges in terms of flying. Now, as I'm kind of hinting at here, in terms of the number of aircraft that I have, in some instances, I have spent very little time with a few of these modules, simply because of time commitments, frustration, in the learning or the accessibility of the aircraft, limitations in using the modules themselves at pre-purchase because there wasn't a lot of flying you could do with them, simply flying around and starting them up or shutting them down, landing and stuff like that. So not a lot of missions or anything initially, And, you know, some of that might be a little bit of a different discussion point in terms of when you buy these early access, but it is something to be aware of, that sometimes in the early purchases you may not get all the bells and whistles that come with it, not only just including the systems within the module itself, but also what you can do with it as an aircraft. Unless, of course, you can create your own instant action or your own campaigns or missions, which is a different skill set as well. So again, this simulator / game is one of the more sophisticated on the market and does have a pretty steep learning curve. So just be aware of that as you navigate through here. I hope this kind of video is helpful for people. Obviously, there's a lot out there. I mean, it's a lot of fun, no question about that, and I want to stress that. But, and I've touched on this subject previously in another video, there is a time and money commitment here as well, and time is one of the biggest things that you need to get the best out of these aircraft if you really want to take them seriously and have actually fun with it. Unless you go to kind of the instant action fold and kind of carve off some of the difficulty. All right, so let's move on here. Now, out of all of the aircraft that I own, probably the one that I play the most, and some of you have noticed this in a lot of my videos, of course, is the F-14B. Again, this is not to suggest that this aircraft is better than the others, but for me at this time, it's the most playable and the one that I enjoy the most. Now, in part, this is because of the degree of completion with the module and the accessibility of a variety of different missions, which allows for replayability in-game. Plus, from a personal perspective, I really like this aircraft. I obviously was in love with Top Gun. It was a movie that was around when I was a kid, and fell in love with that aircraft. So there's an iconic, nostalgic element to that. But I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected, given its relative age, say compared to the F-18, which replaced basically the F-14 permanently by 2006 in the US Navy. It's a really fun aircraft to fly. It really, really is. It has a fairly simple avionics and weapons package system compared to the 16 and the F-18, which makes it a little bit less demanding to learn than the latter, and it's a little bit less intimidating to delve into, I think. Again, this is just me, this is my personal preference. And again, I'm not suggesting here that the aircraft is basic or simplistic, nor is it unsophisticated. But it's perhaps more accessible up front as a result of those things. And I should stress that the airframe itself, the F-14B airframe, is actually a very complex and sophisticated beast, but it's more mechanical than its newer counterparts. We don't have the fly-by-wire, fully fly-by-wire systems. It does enjoy some components of that with the variable wing geometry, which does that on its own. But it's a different flight experience because it's more mechanical and perhaps in some ways less forgiving. But again, you've got that variable swing wing geometry, which gives it a lot of lift at low speed when the wings are out and you're taking off from the carrier. And you've also got these really powerful GE F-110 engines, which provide the thing with incredible performance. Once you put the wings back into the oversweep position, or stow position, I guess is probably the better term there. But once they're locked back and you gun the engines, this thing really starts taking off. You can move this aircraft. It's one of the fastest aircraft in the game. So there's incredible performance, a lot of variety, and it's fun. Visually, the Tomcat, I think, is a very, very attractive-looking aircraft. It's got a menacing, visceral look. It's large and in charge. You can carry a lot of weapons. You can carry a lot of air-to-ground and air-to-air, and you can combine quite a lot of firepower compared to, say, for example, the Tornado, which generally was limited in the amount of weapons it can carry. It's primarily a bomber, so its air-to-air capability is pretty limited. That module isn't in the game, unfortunately, and a lot of us would love it, but just comparing the jet's functionality, you've got quite a lot of variety and variability with the Tomcat, believe it or not. Even though it is a long-range interceptor, it still is able to do quite a few different things. Overall, of course, when you've got all that fuel, you can run along missions. You don't have to refuel all the time, and you can actually travel a long, long way. So a lot of the missions within the game are actually single and less complicated. Again, not having to refuel is it's one of the more complex things to do in the game. So that's an advantage if you're a newer player trying to get more of that enjoyment factor and not that frustration level that can occur with the game sometimes. So that's one of the reasons that I like it. And also, it's really, really, really well done. Heat Blur have to be congratulated. They have injected an incredible amount of detail. The weathering effects, the rendering of the aircraft is amazing. Plus, it's obviously got a very accurate flight model. They had a lot of input from actual pilots. And for me, therefore, it made it a pretty high up there as a purchase choice because of its playability, and much more than I realized than it would be. So, it's a naval aircraft, of course, and so we also have that added bonus of the carrier launch, which is immensely fun. And then you've got the challenge of post-mission trying to recover the aircraft back on deck without pancaking in it or parking it in the back of the, the aircraft carrier, which we've all done. And you've also got the multi-crew factor as well. It adds that extra level of immersion and enjoyment of having a buddy in the back, or you've got the AI jester guy who's there to either hinder you or make you angry, or generally is going to be helpful running the Rio stuff in the back. And I really like what they've done there, and the wheel function that they have, where you can give gesture commands using that wheel. I don't know if it was Spudknocker, but somebody had suggested that this needs to be for all of the aircraft as a layered mechanism for controlling the various functions of radios and stuff in the game. But thus far, right now, it's restricted just to Heapler's module, but it's very cool. So that's that. Next on the list, of course, the F-16. Now, again, this is pure bias and preference because the F-16 is one of my favorite aircraft. I have fond memories of playing Falcon 4 Allied Force many years ago, which also came with a full dynamic campaign, and therefore you had a lot of excellent replay with the aircraft, and it's something I think that is most definitely missing from DCS World right now. That is a dynamic campaign. It is, of course, a work in progress, but it's a wee ways away. We don't know when exactly that's going to come out, as is the aircraft itself right now. The F-16 is definitely a work in progress, and while there are many features to be implemented, the aircraft shows great promise. So, handling is really responsive, aesthetically it's nice looking, and of course it can provide multi-role functions, and that gives you playability and variety, which I think is important in an aircraft. If you're looking for a one-stop shop rather than a role-specific aircraft, and again, that provides playability, it provides flexibility, and it provides enjoyment. And it's one of the reasons I like this aircraft. You get to explore the aircraft's different capabilities, both as a nimble and deadly dogfighter, as well as a ground pounder, as well as a mud mover, and it can do both roles. Probably as an air-to-air, it's obviously excels. That's what its primary function was, but it is capable of doing the mud moving role as well, and that's what makes it a good aircraft. And aesthetically, I like it. I think it's a great aircraft, and it's just one of those dream things. It's like having a Lamborghini Countach in the garage. When you grew up as a kid, it's not the most, not the fastest car now, but it still looks cool, and there's still some romantic element there that I think is appealing. And I think both the F-14 and the F-16 do that for me. Now, third on my list here is the F-18C, and again, this is just preference, bias. It was an early purchase for me when it came out. It's a very capable aircraft. I've lost a little bit of touch with it simply because of its complexity right now. There's a lot of systems within it, avionics-wise, but particularly with the pods, the FLIR systems, and all the different weapons that the aircraft can carry. So there's a lot more study that I have to spend on this before I can get back up to speed. And this kind of spreads this particular theme through to the A10C2, which I think is fantastic, and also the Harrier. Again, really, really nice modules by Razbam and DCS, or Eagle Dynamics at least. And I think they are exceptional modules, lots of fun to fly, but they require a degree of practice and patience to get the most out of them. The Harrier obviously has its unique handling characteristics. You've got to get to grips with that to be able to use it to the best of its ability, certainly if you want to land on the appropriate carrier. And the A-10 is it's a very complex aircraft. It's a lot of subsystems and stuff that you've got to get used to. So it's very layered in terms of its system suite and just those complex systems. But both aircraft, they provide unique challenges. And again, I just haven't had the time. Again, the F-18 looks really nice. They've done an incredible job, Eagle Dynamics, and one of the things that is going to be very, very promising with this particular module is the supercarrier component, which I think we're all looking forward to in the near future. Again, this makes it a must-have module for me. Like the F-14, you've got the thrill of the carrier launch, and then you've got that challenge of recovery back on board post-mission. which again provides this degree of immersion and challenge that no other flight simmer is offering at this time. Certainly, Microsoft 2020 is going to be pretty, but we don't have this gritty kind of experience of getting sweaty palms trying to bring that aircraft back on deck, and that's testament to what Eagle Dynamics have done, which is a very challenging thing to achieve, to provide this degree of detail in a flight sim. So, now, like I said, I've already covered the issues that I've had with the Harrier and the Warthog requiring more study time, and this has kind of squashed my ability to, just devote more to the aircraft that I really love. But again, if you're looking for, say, a more specific close air support role or missions, then these two aircraft are probably the best at that. They shouldn't be overlooked. Don't be put off by that if you're really looking for a ground-pounding aircraft. It's hard to ignore that massive cannon on the A-10C, for example. It's a lot of fun to shoot, but you're going to have limited air-to-air rolls with it. And of course, the F-18 is capable of doing, like the F-16, multi-role missions. So, all right. Now, both the A-10 and the Black Shark, of course, are getting major updates too. Those are going to be future purchasable modules, potentially this year, I think. And if you already own them, you'll get them at a discount. But again, this is going to maybe dictate whether or not I devote money to that, given the amount of time I have spent with those aircraft, which is scant. So therefore, is that a justifiable price point? Something that I need to think about. And of course, if you're in the same boat as me, that's a decision that only you can make. Again, just food for thought. All right, here we go, the KF-50. And this is the only helicopter that I own, the only rotary-winged aircraft. And I've spent a little time in it, but not enough. When I first got it, I was working multiple jobs. I was going to school. So I really wasn't able to, delve into this module, unfortunately. And it is fantastically modeled. Like the Harrier, it offers unique handling characteristics. There's a lot of challenges to get to grips with. Things move a lot slower because you move from A to B a lot more slowly compared to the faster fixed-wing aircraft. But again, a massive degree of immersion. It can't be snorted at and overlooked as a aircraft. It's beautifully modeled. Really does look menacing in all shapes and guises, whether it's resting on the tarmac or whether it's in the air. And again, lots of weapons to choose from to blow things up and fly around in and hover behind and just use the cover. It's a whole different type of flying, and helicopter pilots have to be incredibly skilled. I mean, they really are flying quite a handful, and potentially for things to go wrong, you've got limited options to get out of it. You can't just float to the ground easily, get things wrong, and you're going to crash. So a lot of challenging flying involved in these particular aircraft, but again, that makes it a very, very immersive experience too. All right, last on my list here, we've got the Warbirds, and I've spent, again, scant time on these, sadly. I own both the Spit and, of course, the Messerschmitt Bf-109, and I just haven't really spent time with them. I think when I picked up the Messerschmitt, I think IL-2 was out, so I was playing a little bit of that, and yeah, it just wasn't getting into either of these aircraft, and they've kind of taken a back seat to my F-14 and F-16 right now, unfortunately. So again, something to be aware of, that you don't, have to own all of the aircraft to get the best out of this game. In fact, like I said, I've covered this topic before about time and money commitments. As you can see, I've overstretched myself a little bit, certainly in terms of time. And then you've got to add in like a YouTube channel on top of that. Man, it takes up an extraordinary amount of time, as my wife will readily point out to you. So again, you can see from this that it isn't necessary to own all the aircraft in the game. In fact, I recommend holding back and save your money for the things that you really, really want. Buy a couple of the modules that you think you want to play, and then spend more money on your equipment. But again, we're going to start delving off topic here. So again, with the sales on now, you can enjoy some of the experiences of these aircraft, which will really help make your purchasing decision, and it may be a little bit easier on the pocket to make mistakes, and at least buy it on discount and then come back to it later when you feel you've got the time. So that's my recommendation. Alright, as I said before, I mentioned something about a dynamic campaign. I can't wait for that to come through because I think that's going to be very, very beneficial for solo players in this game, and I think it's something that DCS really needs. But I don't want to delve into this topic too much because I think it's a separate video. But those are the aircraft that I own. Like I said, the F-14B being my favorite right now. Tell me what your favorite is, because I'm curious. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, this franchise, and it's really is a commitment of, like I said, time and energy and money. So yeah, tell me what you play, what you enjoy the most, and why in the comments below. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in again for another video. I appreciate all the likes and subscribes and all the feedback that I get, and I hope you're doing well out there, and I hope you're safe and happy. Carry on flying. This is Prickly Hedgehog out for another video. We'll see you around. Cheers, guys.